Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force Wins, the podcast is the result.
And welcome to Gale Force Wins. I'm Alan Dale, and with me as always, my good buddy from the East End of St. John's, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing fantastic. And the fact that we're on recording another episode makes me feel like even better. But better than that is the fact that we're actually going to showcase a local organization that I know a little bit about, but not as much as I should, frankly. So Rainbow Riders, something that I'm aware of. And Kelly, we're looking forward to learning more about you, Kelly. So take it away, Alan.
Well, thanks very much, Jerry. Yeah, it is an absolute privilege, and really it's an honor to be able to get into conversations with people that are passionate about the organizations that they're working for. And there's no doubt that Kelly Sandoval and the Rainbow Riders is going to be one of those conversations today. So I'm pretty excited to learn all about it and why we should pay attention to this organization. And so, Kelly, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alan. I'm Kelly Sandoval. I work at Rainbow Riders Therapeutic Riding Center in St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm the executive director. I've been here for, 2.5 years, and it's been an amazing 2.5 years. I'm very proud of where we've come from in the 2.5 years that I've been here with the team. I feel like we've really grown and created a real vision here that people are responding to. And to be honest, I'm certainly not taking any of the credit really, because when I got here, we had an amazing group of employees that were just a special breed. And when I met them and I got to know them, I realized, wow, this is not like anything I've ever been a part of.
Wow. Kelly, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from and how you found yourself here. What was that journey?
Well, let's just say it was not linear. So my background is actually in the cosmetics industry and in aesthetics. So I actually am a trained esthetician, and I worked for cosmetic companies for many years in Toronto. I met my now ex-husband in Toronto, and I had my 2 daughters there, and was working all the time at different cosmetic companies. So fast forward, of course, like most Newfoundlanders, we're all longing to be home to raise our kids and be close to family and stuff. Well, I was no different. So I basically probably gave my ex an ultimatum. I said, here's when I'm leaving. I circled a date on the calendar. It said, I'm going home. Love if you could come, but I'm going.
Yeah, awesome.
Very persuasive, just like a lot of Newfoundlanders that marry, a lot of Newfoundlanders that marry mainlanders, right? We're a persuasive bunch. So luckily he did come along, and we all made our way back home to St. John's, where I started to work more for instance, I started to work for nonprofit, as well as continuing to do my aesthetics on the side. So the first nonprofit I worked for was Ducks Unlimited Canada. And I started out as just the assistant, but I showed a lot of interest and engagement. So then I took over for the then program manager, the fundraising provincial manager. And then for the next 7 years, I was the provincial manager of Ducks Unlimited Canada. I was the only female manager in Canada for a long time.
Really? That's surprising, actually, that Ducks Unlimited would only have one. How many organizations are there, off the top of your head?
Well, Ducks Unlimited is actually a huge organization. People don't necessarily really realize, because of course it spans North America and I believe even Mexico, I think. So it's huge, but I will say this, it's rooted in very much a bit of a men's world. So, and they are obviously, you know, they have advanced, they have progressed, but it was a slower go for them, I think. So me being in the management role was definitely a challenge for me.
Yeah.
I definitely felt that. I definitely felt a little bit, you know, it was not easy. It wasn't. But funny enough, all that being said, I kind of entered that role knowing it was not going to be easy, but really being very determined to prove I was capable of doing the same. So a bit spitey, a little bit determined, a little, you know, and so I did. And I just kept showing up and at these, you know, conventions every year. And they're like, hey, she's still here.
She won't go away.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Kelly, you know, it's funny you bring that up. I know Alan and I are proud to be able to feature leaders in the community, but, you know, I grew up with a single mom. My dad died when I was very young, 14. So it's actually, you know, I know Alan and I both feel good to be able to profile female leadership, despite the fact where, you know, gray-haired 50-something males, we want Gale Force Winds to profile everyone, and giving you an opportunity to talk like this is just phenomenal. Because, you know, I have 2 little nieces, and I bring this up on the podcast, don't I, Alan? I want them to be inspired. So thanks for doing this.
No, it's my pleasure. Like, and again, I really do feel like my path really paved the way for where I am now, and what I do and what I'm passionate about. But Ducks Unlimited was a fantastic stepping stone for me. And I loved every minute of it. It was amazing. I got to see Newfoundland like I never could have. Yeah. I got to nooks and crannies and did these beautiful fundraising events, brought the communities together and got to know so many amazing people from, again, like from all parts, like from the Northern Peninsula, Mayne-Brook, Rocky Harbor, Happy Valley Goose Bay, Port-aux-Basques. Even I got to go and meet so many people and do many things.
Well, just want to touch on that, Alan. Sorry, the fact that your love of Newfoundland is coming out. I actually had the good fortune of knowing your dad a little bit. If you don't mind, you want to share just a little bit of his story? I know this is your podcast, but he came from the United States, I believe, and fell in love with Newfoundland. Did he not?
Absolutely, he did. He was from Winslow, Arizona, and came, I guess, in the 50s at Pepperell Air Force Base, and met my mom. She was, my mom is from Carter's Hill, St. John's, and they met, and he absolutely loved Newfoundland. I mean, his experience with music, he was a trumpet player, a teacher, but at that time he was just in the Air Force Band. So he took my mom back to the States and went and did his master's degree at Flagstaff, Arizona. Then it was Northern Arizona University, and then he was dying to come back. So his first position was at St. Pat's, and he really created an amazing music program. And then he took that program to St. Pius, but he loved it here because he really felt he could give something to this place, and it gave back to him.
Wow. I can see now where all the connections are being made. This is fantastic, Kelly. So tell us, okay, there's so much I want to unpack in all of this, but I want to know, what was it like coming home from Toronto? How did that feel, first of all?
Well, it was great because, I mean, we, you know, with 2 young kids, they were my daughters are 16 months apart. So that was challenging. We were paying a lot for daycare. I was, at that time, I think I had moved into a job at IBM just so I didn't have to work nights. So it was great to come home. It was obviously like anybody moving and trying to start up a new life. I mean, we lived with my mother for a few months and, you know, rough. But you know what? It wasn't long before we could really kind of, we got on our feet and we were able to really make headway and build a life for ourselves. So I turned, my ex-husband is he used to marvel. He said, "Wow, I'm 5 minutes away from work." He would be like, "What?" He used to brag to his friends in Toronto because, I mean, a normal commute sometimes is an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good in Toronto.
So Kelly, tell me about the leap from ducks to horses. Was there anything in between there, or straight
Oh
in?
yes, lots in between. So from
Okay.
from Ducks Unlimited, I then got an opportunity to lead the Boys and Girls Clubs of St. John's, which was great as well. So there was a lot. It was a lot of staff. It was big centers, 2 different centers. It was definitely a different environment for me to kind of lead and try to grow. Very proud of what I was able to do there. You know, I worked alongside a board of directors for the kind of the first time. At Ducks Unlimited, we had a provincial council, but we didn't have an actual board of directors, which is very different. So that was my first foray into that type of a nonprofit with so many stakeholders in this one locally. So I was there for about 3 years, and then I decided that I wanted to maybe try my hand at something completely different. And I ended up getting a great job at Rogers Television.
Tell us about that.
Awesome. It's funny, in the pandemic, Alan and I have talked a lot about the pivot. You are the master of the pivot.
I was going to say, this is great.
Yeah. I've been so many people say that to me, like, wow, like, my God, like, you just seem to be able to kind of go from one job to another. And it's not that I'm bored or anything. It's just that I really do crave challenge. I crave learning. I love to learn. I'm a huge avid reader. I absorb a lot. I really do crave kind of getting in there and learning something that's completely, that I don't know. That's a huge motivator for me. So again, going into a totally different field is not scary to me as much as exhilarating.
Right.
Yeah.
And you must find a lot of the skill sets are transferable anyway between groups. So what brought the connection to the Rainbow Riders? Where did that come from?
Well, interesting. Again, I had kind of not even thought about getting back into nonprofit at the time when this particular opportunity came to me. I was very content at Rogers. I was doing a lot. I was learning a lot. I felt I loved my job. I loved my boss. Everything was great. However, I felt like I'd been there for 5 years, and I definitely felt like I had it under my belt. And like most do, you always keep yourself open to opportunity. So as it turned out, a friend of mine, Paul Antle, and his lovely wife Renee are friends of mine, and Paul is the chair of Rainbow Riders. So my daughter Julia, was babysitting for his 2 daughters, and somehow it came up that, mom would probably like to do something like that, or like, that sounds like something mom would be good at. And so Paul was like, tell your mother to get in touch with me.
That's hilarious.
And right.
That's awesome.
And so, I know. And so I did go into the contest, like they were looking, and I did interview a few times with all different members of the board. And the thing with the Rainbow Riders when I came is that it's been around 30 years, Rainbow Riders, and it started with a wonderful horsewoman named Andrea Gillies, and her name is on our barn in remembrance and to honor her memory. But it was a little tiny hovel of a barn, and on the side of the road at Mount Scio for years. Yeah. And, there was a handful of students and, volunteers, a handful of volunteers, maybe a couple of staff. It operated at that level for quite a long time. And mostly the clientele was physically handicapped or disabled youngsters. So that was the focus. And we had physiotherapists that kind of would would refer to rainbow riders that knew, we even had a couple of physiotherapists, excuse me, that were on the board. So that was the I guess the bulk of what Rainbow did for the longest time. And then I think as it started to kind of catch on a bit and grow as more people started to learn about what therapeutic riding was and what the whole, I guess, connection with a horse could mean to kids with disabilities, and how that sort of connection and was super, super magical, really. So I feel like that started to get some legitimacy, and they decided they were going to do a huge capital campaign. Was called Raise It Up. And Paul led the way with that, and succeeded in raising over $6 million, and raised this fantastic state-of-the-art facility that we are now in. Indoor arena, the barn for 16 horses. Beautiful. Of course, my office, even though it's a bit of a storage facility as well, but it's a great facility. It's just state of the art. So that's when they started, I guess, the interim though, between when the old barn kind of was decimated and when the new barn came, that time lapse, like a lot of things, it can impede on your momentum. So when the new barn opened, they had to start from scratch in many ways. They really did. So they floundered a little bit, and it was a bit of a struggle. And then they decided they're going to hire someone that knew nothing about horses, because what they were looking for was someone who knew fundraising, someone who, I guess, maybe had more management experience and more administrative, which was me. So, and I also was at Rogers, I should add, I did concentrate very much on volunteer management and coordination and recruitment. So they also kind of needed that. So enter me, and I get there, and I feel like the staff is really, there's only a few of them. There's only like 4 or 5 staff at this point, and they're really kind of lost. They're a little bit lost, I think. And, but the nice thing was I didn't come in to tell them how to do their jobs. I really relied on them and their expertise with these horses and with the program. So I came in, and I'm very much of the belief that I'm a collaborator with them. I'm not here to tell them what to do. I'm here to lend them some vision that I see. So in some ways, my excitement about what this place meant and what it could do and the vision that I could see inspired them as well. And they realized they were special. They really did have skills that were completely, unique to them. And I really relied on their expertise, and they had to teach me. They taught me. I'm no horsewoman, but I certainly can hold my own in a conversation now, I'm proud to say, about horses. So yeah, I think it was coming in that way that seemed to have a kind of a good sort of outcome, I feel.
Like, can you explain therapeutic riding, exactly what it is? What's it all about?
Sure, I know. And you know what? This is always, I feel like, something I want to address, because I do feel many people know about rainbow riders. They've heard it. It's kind of in our, it's in our verbiage, but it's not a lot of people actually know what therapeutic riding is and does. So therapeutic riding basically is basically riding lessons that are specifically customized to whatever a person's disability is. So all of the instructors are specially trained. Many of them come from backgrounds as recreational therapists or whatever. Like our head instructor, Erin O'Reilly, is a recreational therapist, graduate from Mon. A lot of them maybe have come from already teaching just, like able-bodied lessons. But they find their way, and they have to go through our governing body is CANTRA, which is the Canadian Association for Therapeutic Riding. And basically, CANTRA is the is the preeminent organization that trains and certifies instructors. So they go through rigorous training in order to be able to imagine. I mean, people coming in with all different types of disabilities, cognitive, physical, emotional, mental. They come in with all that. And so those instructors need to be able to assess what it is that their goals are, and basically work with, the kids, and work with the parents, work with the caregivers, achieve what, set out, what it is that they're going to achieve in this lesson and in subsequent lessons. And in doing so, focus on whatever it is with the child and the horse. We also do have quite a few adults, I might add, too, that we do. So for someone, say, with cerebral palsy that's in a wheelchair, we have a special lift. And the lift, we use in order to mount the rider on the horse. From there, what happens is amazing, because that horse becomes their legs. It becomes their freedom. So it's very powerful to watch when a person who, spends every day, all day in a wheelchair, gets on a horse and is just like the next rider, is just like, is no different. They lose that whole, I guess, part of their being as a disabled person when they get on that horse. Wow. And in getting on that horse, what then happens is they engage their core in a way that they cannot engage it in any other kind of way. They have an amazing stretch, because of course they have to mount the horse and one leg is on either side. So that creates a stretch. So that's amazing for anyone who is in a wheelchair or has certain, physical challenges. Then what you get is that sort of, it's like a physiotherapy, but it's on a horse. That's the only way to describe it. And there's nothing like it in no type of comparable physiotherapy that can do and work the same muscles the way that being on the horse does. Because if you've ever been on a horse, you get off and you're sore. Like you can feel it. You absolutely can feel it. Yeah. There's muscles in there that you didn't know you had. So being a disabled person with limited use of their legs, this is like amazing therapy, physical therapy.
Wow.
Yeah. But also, as you can imagine, there's also the amazing bond that happens with the horse and the rider, because they're on the same horse every week for every lesson. There becomes this huge trust, because while you're learning to ride, you're also communicating with the horse in a more sensory way. So your legs are telling the horse which way to go, how fast to go, whether it's a walk, a trot, a canter. So there's this communication. It's unspoken and sometimes spoken. Certainly we use, whoa and walk on and those types of prompts for the horse. But for kids that don't speak, because we have a lot of kids with autism that are nonverbal, right, they need to use other ways, but they communicate. And that's, again, that we're working then on the communication piece with those riders. So they're not telling their horse to walk on the same way that the next rider is. They're telling their horse to walk on by touch, by, whatever kind of way they decide that they're going to establish communication.
Kelly, the team there, the therapists and stuff, they must be amazing. Where do they come from?
I don't know, but they make my job a complete joy, because the types of, right now, we have mostly all females, like in their 20s. They're all young, exceptional young ladies, actually. They make my job a joy. They're so motivated. They're so empathic and just smart, committed. They're what you would want, they're just wonderful, wonderful human beings that just get it. They just they're not here for the money. They do it because they absolutely live and breathe it.
Right. And tell us a little bit about the families and the kids that use the horses? Are they all from Newfoundland? They are.
Well,
It
yes,
must be amazing too to watch all that.
oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen some incredible transformations, incredible stories of just like, for instance, I mean, I was there when mother who had a nonverbal child for the first time literally heard her daughter tell the horse to walk on. And she literally stood there in complete amazement and the tears. She's like, she does not talk. And she actually said, walk on to the horse. So I don't know what it is about being in that environment. I mean, certainly, there's kids that try it and maybe it's not jiving with them. But you know what? I would say 9 times out of 10, when these kids and young adults get on the horse, there's something that happens. There's more that happens than just meets the eye.
Wow. It sounds beautiful. It sounds magical, really. It's unbelievable. Tell me, we've learned a little bit about the staff. We've learned, well, we learned a little bit about you. We've learned a little bit about the staff and the families and the kids that come and use these services. Tell us about the horses. Where do they come from?
Well, they are also incredibly special. They aren't just plucked off of anybody's backyard or anybody's farm. They definitely need to be a certain type of horse. I mean, and the thing about a therapy horse is not always easy to get around these parts. Newfoundland is not known, it's a different, there's just not many. There's just not a huge horse community. So there's not a whole lot to choose from. So we often do have to go out into like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI to get a therapy horse. We obviously prefer one that's already been doing some therapy, but it's really about, just like with people, it's about the attitude. You can train the rest. If they've got the right attitude, you can train. Yeah. Same with a horse. If they're very calm and they've got that nice kind of way, and you can, what we call bomb proof. So like, obviously safety is extremely important and extremely stringent here, making sure that, the horses that we use are extremely safe. So they really do have to be a certain demeanor and safe for sure.
It really does sound amazing. I have to tell you, it must be so special to see play out in front of your eyes the bond between the person and the horse. That must be amazing.
It really is. And again, I'm like coming from a place where I'd never really been around horses, never been around this type of therapy. So it wasn't long before I realized how absolutely magical it really is. And again, I now have this amazing appreciation for not only the horses and what they do, because they're huge. They actually, it's a funny thing, when they have time off, the horses, they are itching to get back. Like they actually do. Most of the horses are way happier when they have that little bit of purpose. They enjoy.
So it's helping the horses too, obviously.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. The horses know their job. They know, and they're quite happy to do it. And when they decide, every now and then you'll get a horse that starts to kind of act out, and you realize, okay, they've had enough. They're done. They want to go out to pasture, or they want to do something, be in a different, and that does happen. All of a sudden, the horse is like, just like people, you want to retire. You feel like that, or we're very in tune to the horses and whether they are happy doing what they're doing. It's very important.
Kelly, it really does sound amazing. I have to tell you, what should the audience know about Rainbow Riders? Like, what would be that one thing that you'd want them to know about Rainbow Riders?
I think that, generally speaking, we are basically, our participants come to us with a physician's referral, but that physician's referral could be for so many things, because so many things seem to be improved with the therapy, with the riding and with the therapy. So like I said, the disabilities that we see can be seen or unseen. They can be emotional. We find too, since COVID, I should say that it's been absolutely just mind-blowing how many more people are reaching out to us for service and for the lessons. We've seen over 95% increase in our lessons. And I do think that COVID, whatever it has happened, I know that a lot of our youth have been without a lot of opportunities for recreation. But a lot of our young people are suffering a little bit with mental health issues. And I think that it's, to me, I guess from where I stand, it's really, really overwhelming how many young people are suffering with mental health issues, with anxiety, depression. And I think that COVID certainly hasn't really helped that. So I feel that they are reaching out for different types of expressive therapies, like therapeutic riding, because, it may be untraditional, but I think that the word is kind of out there now that this is a very effective and enjoyable way to benefit your mental health.
Well, Kelly, I was thinking, even for those of us who feel that we're well adjusted and don't have as many issues, this pandemic has not been easy for any of us. And it's interesting to listen to you say, that there's an increased desire on the part of people to utilize your services. So, we're happy to be able to bring this. The description of it as you were talking. I was looking at the pictures of the staff and the horses on your website, and it's quite emotional, actually, what it is you do.
It is. I really feel that people do, the love that the staff, like the pride and the love of what they do, like, is just incredible. And to be honest with you, it really does start with them, because what they pour into it is why the programs are successful, in my opinion. Between the horse being a good match for the rider, but also how that instructor just can bring the best out in the participants. It's incredible. So I really do. But again, that was the first thing I noticed about this place. People who love horses and are doing this therapeutic part of lessons are completely special breed of people. Like, honestly, I've never, ever once had to wonder whether or not things are getting done, because ultimately the program is what just motivates them to do better and to do more. And yeah, it's really quite something.
Kelly, I don't know if you touched this in some of the conversation earlier with Alan, but in terms of the horse itself, is it more than riding? Like, there's a bond there. But what about the feeding? And is there any program around the care of the horse as well? Maybe Absolutely. You already touched on that.
Yeah. And again, that is, I kind of meant to mention that a lot of our programs, mostly it is the riding, and we do that. But we do have an unmounted program called Horse Discovery that was designed with the help of occupational therapists. And that is quite therapeutic as well. And actually, it's that particular program, for some people who maybe aren't sure if riding is for them, or they don't have a lot of experience with a horse and there's a little bit of apprehension, the Horse Discovery is a great program to segue into a riding program. But in and of itself, as a standalone program, hugely therapeutic as well. And really, really, really great. Like, the Autism Society of Newfoundland is a huge promoter of the Horse Discovery program, because it seems to really sort of resonate with the autistic participants. Yeah, so we also do, in the summer, for instance, we have a hybrid program. So we're doing it. Today's our very first day of our summer program. And last year we redesigned our program based on the whole COVID and some of the I guess, protocols that were implemented. So we designed this program that it would be a hybrid program. So it would start out with the unmounted horse discovery type of lesson, and then right from there they go into their actual riding lesson. But what that teaches them is it gives them a bit of a holistic horse experience where they are learning to groom their horse, they are learning to tack up their horse, they're learning how to put the horse back and take the tack off. So there becomes that little bit, even additional kind of bond from the ground. Yeah.
Interesting.
So Kelly, there's got to be, the audience will be watching, and there'll be people that'll be curious. How do they become a part of it? How do they tap into this amazing offering? How does that happen?
Well, as I mentioned, most of our, well, all of our, no, I shouldn't say most, we do, like for the most part, our mandate is definitely children, youth, and young adults with disabilities. And we require a physician's referral. So again, like I said, that could be for any number of kind of diagnoses. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be autism. It could be any number of diagnoses whereby the physician feels that it may be beneficial to the patient. They send that to us. And then, of course, as long as we have spots open, then our program director will reach out and do an intake meeting. And from that intake meeting, then we determine like what are we going to work on? What is the goal? Is it communication? Right. Is it socialization? Is it self-regulation? It's very hard to get up in, and lose your self-regulation on a 1,500-pound animal, because that's a little bit dangerous. So so self-regulation can be a goal. Any communication, physical improvement, coordination, motivation, so many things are improved. So they will take that participant and say like, okay, talk to the caregiver, the parent, figure out what it is that's needed, and then design that program around those goals. And the rest is, it just kind of happens organically, right? Once they get on that horse.
Kelly, how do you educate the physicians? How do you educate the healthcare community that this is an option?
Well, actually, when they were, I think that we do seem to have, it seems to, since I've been here, like in the last couple of years, I've really noticed the level of referrals from Eastern Health and from certain other kind of healthcare kind of organizations have like really started to get it, and they've really started to refer quite a lot. So all I can say is that whatever feedback that they're getting from their patient load is obviously positive. And I think they're seeing that. They're seeing that there's such positivity. Organizations like Key Assets and Waypoints, these types of things, they're referring to us all the time because they're seeing behavioral improvements in their participants. So yeah, I feel like once they start to see like the benefits, it's kind of becomes it kind of just goes from there. Yeah. And I guess I think that generally speaking, there's been a little bit more publicity about the whole benefit of horses and animal therapy and horse therapy. I feel it's become a little bit more I guess more like common knowledge. I don't know if you agree. Maybe you can kind of speak to that to see if it's something that you had heard of or.
No, I listen, Kelly. I've certainly heard of horses being used for therapy. Indeed, my wife works in palliative care, and often they'll bring horses into the palliative care unit because I live on Prince Edward Island, and a lot of farmers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
As they pass, they want to be close to the horses. So so I've known that the horses have a really special bond, but I find it fascinating that Memorial University's got, a world-class medical school right there, specializing in rural kind of family practice. It seems like a near perfect fit to have that medical class, those medical school, those students come visit your facility to say, look, this is what's in the art of the possible. Look at the good things that are happening here and plant that seed very early in those young physicians' minds as they go to their rural practices across, indeed, the globe, but certainly across Canada. Yeah, it's fascinating, Kelly. You've had a great journey. Yeah, you're clearly not the type of person that shies away from a challenge. You're you're very well suited for this. Your passion for what you're doing, you can feel it in the conversation, and I commend you for that. And a number of times you've deflected everything away from you to talk about the people that you work with and the importance of what they bring. That's true leadership. That really is true leadership. And again, to be commended for that. Kelly, if from somebody who's had these wonderful experiences and is part of something so very, very special in the moment, what would your piece of advice be to the audience? What would that small takeaway look like?
A piece of advice for me, if I was to speak for myself, again, I do feel that it's important to do something that you are very passionate about. Sometimes your job finds you, and that's something, again, maybe a part two to the advice, because I know that young people, when they're starting out in their career, they're looking, oh my gosh, I need to find something that's, that I'm passionate about. But sometimes your job finds you. And then and it's like I always used to tell my daughters, how can you love something that you're not good at yet? You need to get good at it, and then you will love it. Yeah. And so to me, when you're out there and you're trying to figure out your path and you don't know what it is, just let it go with the flow and it'll find you.
That's fantastic advice. Jerry, your thoughts?
I love that. I do have a question. Volunteering. I notice I'm on the section on your website. There's times in an organization like yours where you're flush with volunteers, and there's times where you're scrambling. Where are you right now? What would you like to say about the volunteering opportunities?
Well, the funny thing is, when I got here 2.5 years ago, we could count on one hand. And once, kind of with, I guess, my background as being a volunteer coordinator, that was huge. And
yeah,
we just went on social media, and all we had to do was open that door, and they came, and people were so excited to be able to work in a barn, work with round horses, even the mucking of the stalls. Now we have over, I'd say, about 175 volunteers that actually help. And I will say this, the instructors are one piece of it that are obviously huge, but for every rider that starts with our program, they may need up to 3 volunteers on each side of them and leading them.
Yeah, I just read that actually. Yeah.
Yes. So really, I would be completely remiss, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because I would be remiss not to mention the amazing contribution that our volunteers make to this program. And most of our actual instructors right now, they all started as volunteers.
That's awesome. Well, just to piggyback on that conversation, the one part that I've been involved in nonprofits, chair of the YMCA at one point, the fundraising piece. I'm reading the paragraph here right now. Talk a little bit about that, because that is so important to the sustainability of an organization like yours.
Yes. Well, I think, when I first got here, I know that I needed to raise $25,000 like within no time. That was, okay.
No pressure.
No pressure. There was pressure, but I was, again, I saw what I saw, and I was like, okay, my whole philosophy about the fundraising, do the program, build the program, affect as many people as you can affect positively, and the rest will come. Now, not just sitting here, I'm writing grants constantly. I am, always trying to network and make sure that people know what we're doing, so that we can, again, solicit corporations and just people in the community, because we do not get guaranteed government funding, unlike a lot of other wonderful charities and nonprofits. we have to apply and write grants for pretty much everything. And trust me, when you've had as much growth as we've had in the last couple of years, it's challenging. And we have found ourselves in some tough spots over the last couple of years. Let me tell you, it hasn't always been easy. But, we have an amazing community. And I do feel that, at the point that we're at now, I think more and more people are starting to understand the actual huge value that we're the huge impact that we're making on our community. And so we're finding that, with that, it's getting a little bit easier, but still lots of work, if that makes any sense.
Well, it makes lots of work to me, or not lots of sense to me. I mean, your facility is phenomenal. People might look at it and say, oh, they're well funded. But believe me, I know from being involved in the nonprofit sector, just because you got a building doesn't mean that you're all set, right? In fact,
building
you got to dig deeper.
and now, as you can imagine, as a building ages, even more, right? And horses raising, or not raising, but like maintaining horses here on this island is very costly. It is not a cheap undertaking, let me tell you. And and of course, our staff has grown from about 5 to about 17.
Wow.
So it's definitely been a challenge.
Well, like I said, that's why I wanted to bring this up as a business development person. And I always think about the fundraising side of things. It's so anyone who's watching this right now who thinks this is an amazing organization like Alan and I do, please get on and help Kelly and the group out, because they're doing amazing things.
Thank you.
Jerry, can we get your final thoughts on today?
Well, I just want to say thank you to Kelly for what you're doing. Thank you to the board. I know Paul Antle and Renee a little bit. This is wonderful. Friends of mine utilize the services. And I think that this is a special place, Alan and Kelly. We created Gale Force Wins for inspiration. And we're just happy that you had the time to come on with us and help inspire people to utilize your services, but as well, your leadership. Maybe there's a young lady out there who will be inspired to pivot like you have.
Yeah, the queen of the pivot. Thank you, though, for wanting to speak to me and wanting to learn about Rainbow, because I'm super proud of what we're doing here, and it is a very special place. You're not wrong.
Well, folks, another wonderful edition of Gale Force Wins, and what an absolute pleasure it was to speak with Kelly Sandoval today, and to learn a little bit more about the wonderful things that are happening at Rainbow Riders and the therapeutic riding, and the absolute difference they're making to the people that are participating, but to society largely. And this is the type of thing that we need more of, certainly all across our country. And it's happening right here in Atlantic Canada, happening right here in Newfoundland. It's fantastic to see. I'm sure glad that fella standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, decided to point his finger at Newfoundland and say, I want to go back there. And Kelly, I'm sure glad that you picked up from Toronto and decided to come back here, because we're happy to have you. I'm going to leave the audience with my own piece of advice, and that is the world needs more Kelly Sandoval. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's Gale Force Wins, WINS.com.